What's going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, Leo King, and welcome to Deep Astrology, your weekly astrology forecast for the week of July the 8th through the 14th of 2020. If you've never watched the show before, it is exclusive to highvibe.tv. Check out the links down below. Also, our app, which you can get on iOS, Android, or you can, of course, get it on Roku and Apple TV. Make sure that you subscribe to get the exclusive content that I do every day, my exclusive daily video horoscope with astrology and tarot, and of course my weekly astrology forecast for each sun sign and tarot and intuitive, and we have so many other practitioners, so much more, and we have also exclusive shows like Full Disclosure and so much more. But you get this show, I know it's on YouTube, but remember when we go to the chart portion, you're not able to see the chart portion, you just get the audio, but if you are on High Vibe, you get the whole entire show. And definitely, I look at the charts in that really crazy Leo King way. So thanks so much for all your support. Truly appreciate it. And if you've not checked out my 2020 What's Next video, it is a 3.5 hour prediction video that is deep astrology style, but much more deep, going into lots of predictions, also going into history and combining the astrological, historical, reference to what's happening right now. So make sure that you check it out. It's an awesome video. It's on the paid video section. Just go to highvibe.tv, the website, click on paid video section in the watch section, and then you can watch it on the apps or just watch it on the website or Chromecast it or however that you want to do it. Thanks so much for that too. Well, this week we have a lot going on in the astrology, just like every other week, but of course we are out of the eclipse season now. But in many ways, we are closing the eclipse season since the moon is going to make its waning 3/4 square in Aries to the sun in Cancer. So we're going to have this big Aries Cancer and actually Capricorn T-square. So we're going to be in a lot of cardinal energy, and Aries is going to be the focal point, not only because Mars is there and that is, the start of astrology as the starting point of the whole entire zodiac of Aries, and having Mars there and it being the planet that rules Aries, it's a big deal. But with these big T-square aspects, meaning that we have these big squares and oppositions that are happening, this is a time for us to really get into the pressure cooker of choice, the choices that we have to make, especially in cardinal energy. And it's been hard with Mercury that's been retrograde, but finally does come out of its retrograde this weekend. We're going to see Mercury come direct in Cancer on Sunday, really early in the morning. It's around 1 a.m. Pacific, about 4 a.m. Eastern. And then we're seeing Chiron retrograde this weekend with Mars that's going to conjunct Chiron, be right on top of it. And that is going to be a very weird aspect because, of course, Chiron in Aries already is weird since the fact that it was last here, 50 years ago when it was in Aries last time, and we didn't even know Chiron existed until 1977. So we've never actually been aware of Chiron's existence and actually gone through the Aries transit, although we did see it in I think it was actually more beginnings of 1969, and we saw it into the mid-70s. But, this is an important moment for us because the way that we think things should look from an ego standpoint or an identity standpoint is going through this kind of, I would say, well, you're just going to have to just realize, you really don't know how it should look, especially with the South Node in Sag. Our own beliefs, our own outlooks on things can get a little bit, especially with Neptune and Pisces squaring the nodes, not exact, but, they are starting to make their squared aspects that, our own delusional outlooks that sometimes, especially ego-wise, when it doesn't go our way, we can feel hurt, or we could feel damaged, or we could feel wounded, or we could feel we're holding on some sort of identification of the world, our identity of life, even other people, that isn't exactly what might come out. And it's a big lesson this week of there is something called destiny, and I talked a lot about that last week. But this is a time for us to really go, the foundation, the tree of life, which is Cancer and Capricorn, and with this being Cancer season, for us to really realize that the roots in our life that are embedded in a direction, that we know what the long-term direction is, and the identity of how things fit into that direction and into our tree of life. In many ways, if you see how nature works, it's not like nature decides how things are going to look. It just naturally happens the way that it's supposed to. So it's a more organic energy. And I think that instead of looking at the negatives here of Chiron retrograde with Mars that'll be on top in Aries, I would say that this is about learning the organic identity, the organic self, the organic destiny, the organic feelings. And organic stuff, when it comes spirituality-wise, is a little bit difficult because of the fact that we try to attach things as organic as if it's an understood thing, or does it have this in it? Does it have that in it? You know, organic is just organic. It just happens the way it happens. And there is the magical energy of nature and of course of God that does allow things to happen. And I think that this is a beautiful way for us to really see the tree of our own life start to be defined more in our lives, where it's been very confusing, but at the same token having to really re-identify some of the delusional beliefs or the outlooks or, you know, the conquests of some sort of belief system that sometimes in our identification of things can definitely be a little bit of a sore spot. But when you learn that it wasn't the spot, could it even be sore anymore? You know, this is a lot of stuff with the sun that, of course, is getting ready to make its opposition to Jupiter and Pluto, which we're going to see at the beginning of the week next week after we get out of this Mercury retrograde this weekend and so forth. And so we are coming to a major reflection point in our lives of massive change and of massive change of different doorways. And I think what's ironic about all the energy this week, because Mercury's coming direct this weekend, because Chiron's going to retrograde this weekend, because Mars and Chiron are going to meet this weekend and into the beginning of next week, there is this, we all really don't know this week where things are going or how they look, and we can't be sure about it. It definitely is not a time to place bets on things. And we have to just organically allow things to just play out. It doesn't mean don't play the game, but I think that it's about allowing life to unfold as it's here to unfold. And that is, I would say, one of the most easiest ways to understand what spirituality really truly is, or how I would say the true esoteric understanding of nature is. You know, I think everybody gets confused about what nature is. They think it's trees, they think it's going to the ocean, they think it's those things. And it is in many aspects from a human point of view. But the esoteric understanding of nature is how the magical energy of the universe unfolds. That's a natural thing, and nature is derived from the word of natural. And so I think that this is about understanding the natural way of destiny, the natural way that things happen. You know, it was funny, I think it was about 2 months ago, I had posted on my Instagram a Joe Walsh interview for the Eagles. I love the Eagles, I'm an old Eagles fan, I love the Eagles, and I love Joe Walsh too. But he was talking about how, you know, life, it just seems that, you know, you just go through all these things, and at the time it seems so dramatic and everything seems so crazy. But when you look back, it's like a perfectly orchestrated story. And that really is the way that we need to start to look at things. That sometimes when we go through things in our life, and I think that this is going to be a big lesson for us all this week, with this being an emotional time, of course, in Cancer, and with the Mercury retrograde finishing in Cancer, and with Mars and Aries, which are very different, right? Mars is definitely like gung-ho, let's go to it. I want this in my life. I want to take action on it. Mars is the god of war. So there's that warrior element in us that just, we can push through anything. And, you know, there's a thing about Mars, it says that we need to allow ourselves to still go forward in our lives and not just say no to things all the time, but at least still go into life. But I would say that this is about learning that, you know, we do go through things for us to organically and naturally go through it, to sometimes allow that step in our destiny to take us to another step. And one thing about Capricorn that I like the most about Capricorn, maybe because I have Jupiter in Capricorn, is Jupiter, you know, is not happy here because it wants to experience everything in life. It wants to have everything open up, and especially Jupiter is exalted, right, in Cancer, not Capricorn, because of the fact that we want to feel every positive emotion and feel safe. And there's something about destiny that Capricorn's about just, okay, that got you to that step to get you to this next step. It's not about looking backwards and keep, you know, going backwards. Capricorn might be patient, but it doesn't take 2 steps back in order to take 1 step forward. And I think that that's a problem that we keep running into the collective conscious right now, is this idea that we are taking too many steps back, and that's okay in order for us to take 1 step forward. Maybe it's more like, are you continuing to look at things in your life as if this was just a really horrible situation that happened and I learned from it and it made me step backwards? Well, what if it was more like, okay, it was actually the rocket ship to the next step, that you just stepped forward even more so you can finally get to where you need to go and continue to move forward on the path. And I think that that's actually the fact. It's our own perspectives of this South Node in Sag with the Jupiter retrograde, remember, on top of Pluto, that can just be demonstrous and destroy our progress forward in our life. And right now it looks like, especially if you want to use the media as an example, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, it just seems to be like everything is taking a step backwards in life and everything is going backwards and everything is just not going forward at all. But I think that we are all witness right now to a very unique aspect that we are going on to the next step of evolution of the world. We are going on the next step of evolution of consciousness, and just in Capricorn terms, the restructuring of the world, that however we thought it wanted to be defined from group identification, collective, to the collective itself, to the individual of ourselves, there was no way with Chiron and Aries that anybody on the planet was going to get it to look like the way we thought it was going to look, especially with the South Node in Sag. Now, what I think is very interesting about this week, too, is that the nodes are finally going to move off of 29 degrees of Sag in Gemini, with the North being, of course, in Gemini and the South being in Sag. And that's a big deal because remember on May 5th, that's when the North and the South Node moved into Gemini and Sagittarius. And so they've been stuck here at this 29th degree, which is a very critical, very edgy degree, especially dealing with this connective force to, the universe to Earth, I would say. And they serve to the pleasure of the sun and the moon that define the eclipses. And we just went through 3 eclipses in 6 weeks, so congratulate yourself that you made it through. But we are closing that cycle with this big, again, where I started, this big 3/4 waning square of the moon in Aries, with the square to the sun in Cancer and to the square to Jupiter Pluto. And so we are emotionally, even at the same time, having to really re-identify our feelings of the identity of how our tree of life is growing, that our direction in life is going. And instead of going like into that, the past, or we're stepping backwards, or this didn't work, or, I don't want to say that we need to continue to look at ourselves like victims. That's an easy way to bring Chiron energy out, or to even define Chiron, because I would say that I could do a video for probably 4 weeks straight every day for hour after hour after hour just about Chiron. That it is so odd, it is so weird, and it is the oddities that make this universe so unique. And it's the oddities that make you a human. And it's the human element that we need to remember about life, that there is no AI human. And I want to, finish with that here, is that's, I think, part of this weird thing with these nodes changing, is as we're trying to understand our reality, we're trying to understand the matrix itself, we have to realize that it's got an organic and natural nature to this matrix. And it is divinely connected to a divine, beautiful, and light source that we cannot forget. And I think that there's so much beauty for us to not forget about right now in these times. Even though the sun is going to oppose Jupiter, Pluto, which can look extremely scary, but it is the scariness of you taking a next step this week into your life to a better part of your destiny. Especially that Mercury is direct when this happens. That I think that this will be much more positive, and especially to look at the moon this week that's going to be with Venus, and having moon Venus, and with Venus now direct. Remember, Venus went retrograde in May, and then it went direct, of course, June 25th. So this is going to be the first time we're going to see the moon go over Venus without it being retrograde. We've been seeing this Venus that was going into a stop motion and with moon conjunctions, and then we were seeing Venus then in retrograde with moon conjunction, and now we're finally seeing the moon and Venus together, with Venus now bright enough to be a morning star, bright enough to show herself off, and the two benefic energies, even though Venus is still shadow, it's not at full speed, she's definitely moving forward every day farther and farther and farther. So the goddess is moving forward, the energies of relationships and the feel-good energies. And I know there's still a lot of questions in that space since Venus has not hit this North Node in Gemini yet. But with Rahu and Venus here, there is this, we are trying to figure out what's going to make ourselves feel better in our lives and feel good. And I think that fear is going to be something we all have to undertake, as far as that on the other side of fear is your destiny. And the other side of fear is the ultimate gift. That the ultimate gift of life is going through your fears. And the fear is about comfort. The fear is about playing it too safe in life. The fear is not being willing to go through life and the humility of life by taking things on, by identifying things, and then realizing sometimes maybe that wasn't meant for our destiny. And that's okay for it to move to help us define the next step in our life, to go to the next place. And I think that the more that we come from this humility, and I think that the place that we come from that we are in an evolutionary time, that we are in a time that fear is the doorway to the gift, that when we face that and we go through that door, we will find the most beautiful gifts. And it's ironic to me that the moon that is going to square the sun and square Jupiter Pluto at the same week that the sun is going to be in opposition to Jupiter and Pluto. So that means that our emotional body and our true spirit and our true soul are evolving at such a massive way. We're not going to see this again for at least 13 years. We're not going to see the sun oppose Jupiter-Pluto again. We're not going to see it on the same week as well with a moon that will square Jupiter-Pluto. So you're not going to see this one for over a decade. And I would say that this is important because it's an important time for you to realize that this is a moment, especially with them retrograde, Jupiter and Pluto, that these are deep inner fears of you really taking steps to make your life go to the next level, whatever that might mean for you, especially when it just comes to the evolution of your soul, especially to being more adult, if you want to look at it that way, to taking on more responsibility for yourself. And I think that this is also making tough choices, right? Which are fears. But those fears of the tough choices aren't the choices. They're actually our deeper wants, our deeper needs with Pluto there and Jupiter, and especially Saturn. That Saturn being here, and with quincunxes to the North Node, and then that Saturn retrograde is following the North Node as it comes to 28 degrees and gets off this edgy point that, our mind is our battleground and our emotions are our battleground. So the mind and the emotional body right now are going through a lot of confusion and fear based upon, what's next and what's going to happen next? Well, go look. And also at the same time, when you go look, it's like when you're a kid with training wheels on, when you finally take them off and you start riding your bicycle, you're going to get some raspberries. You're going to fall. You're going to, think of Spirit as got the helmet on for you here. But if you're too susceptible to the sensitivities of this reality, to the sensitivities of being a human, this is going to come in and, be a very big whoa. Because it's going to wake you up to realize that you have to have strength to be a human. You have to be strong to be a human. And of course we have to be gracious, and of course we have to be empathetic, and there's so many things that go along with it. But the greatest task of being a human is to be able to continue to move forward. To be able to continue to re-identify when things identify not the way we see them as we want them to be. That life does have a lot of those scenarios that pops up. That's because it's not on God's plan. That's because it's not on destiny's plan, and that's okay. That's the gauge that keeps you like a compass back towards going towards where you're headed in this life and where's the true message of your soul. But this is not a time to be herded into fear about going through what you feel inside of yourself you must know. And that's through the facts, and that's through the stimulation, and that's through the curiosity. There is no guidebook on this. There is no unwritten law, which unwritten laws are being redefined right now, in some places positive, and of course some places negative. And none of us on this planet can say that we can be happy-go-lucky about the way that things look at this moment, because it all does not look the way we want to. If you look at from a political standpoint, if you look at from your own personal standpoint, if you look at that from a relationship standpoint, there has just been so much energy here that has been really challenging, as far as that there is not one person in the world that is exactly happy with the way things look. in the world itself and in their lives in many ways. And I think that we can change that story this week in ourselves, at least, our personal lives. That's what Cancer's about. With not being afraid to take on the fears of taking on things that we hope are going to be either it that takes us to that next step or it that goes with us on our next step. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, because the ultimate test of courage is being able to do it with you in spirit alone in many ways. And just being the awareness that you are a human, which comes from humility. And the humility of being a human is the openness and the acceptance of that, the things we go in life, we don't need to try and prove ourselves. And we don't need to also try and shame ourselves. We have to learn that, we do things in order for us to try to figure out our world and to figure out what we want in our lives. And sometimes those things don't work out, because this is a lot of energy showing you what's not working out. But at the same time, it's directing you to directions and to waters and to places and to destinies that will. But you cannot get on that till you identify what is not working, what is not making you feel good, and what you're trying to prove, maybe to the world, maybe to your family, maybe to the others, that you're flawless and that this situation's great. And this situation with this person is wonderful, and this job is going great this way. And we're in a world right now where none of that matters. All that matters is your own personal needs, your own personal life, to make sure it's really on the right course this week. And if you're ready to really see the changes that need to be made, for some people it's going to be partnerships, for some people it's going to be jobs, for some people it's just going to be a re-identification in how you act, in your own behaviors, in your own way that you communicate, in your own perspectives, your own belief systems. But we need to remember that there is nobody on this planet, in this collective, that has a complete view of this world right now that sees it exactly the way that they want to see it. Even if somebody tries to say, oh, I'm so accepting of it all. No, we all have an ego. We all have something that it's like, well, I don't really like the way that that looks, or I don't like the way that that's said, or I don't like the way that I have to do this, or I don't like what those people are doing, or I don't like how, right? This stuff is Chiron stuff in Aries. And this is us all having to just cool that ego down as far as it's not looking the way that you want to, and that's okay. So why keep staying in that space when you can go through the fear of going into a different identification right now, a different path, because we're in so much cardinal energy, you must define a path still. And I know it's confusing. I know it's the end of a Mercury retrograde. I know it's a moon square the sun. I know it's a Chiron retrograde with Mars there and a Mars conjunct Chiron. But at the end of the day, this can be one of the most healing times of your life. This could be one of the biggest moments of your life to get you to that next step in your life, and not looking at it as you had to leave something that made you feel like you were 2 steps back on the ladder just to go 1 step forward, but to look at it as your ultimate leap towards the biggest step that you've always wanted to get on. Sometimes life is chutes and ladders, but it's always going up. Let's take a look at the charts. Chutes and ladders. And so I think that's the big deal of this week. I think that that's where we're going to find our happiness. I think we're going to find more joy, because there's not a lot of joy in continuing to own or manifest from that space. I'm just waiting for Craig to change the focus on this camera. Gracias, amigo. Or it's still, yeah. Thank you. So that's a good example of Mars, Chiron, and Aries. Is like, instead of flipping out, it's just like, am I taking a step back on the show if it's not focused? Sure, it doesn't look the way I want it to, and even you as a viewer might be like, well, it's not focused. But it's that whole lesson of just, that's a Chiron moment. Okay, welcome to humanity. Not even the cameras are smart enough to figure it out. And sometimes it does take a human to manually focus it correctly. And we are at a time where we have to really look at things like that we are having to refocus our life, re-examine our truth of what things we need in our life to move forward with and what to leap forward with at the same token. I think that's so important. That's our great fear, is taking the next step forward right now. Or what is that next step forward? There's so many possibilities, and that's what we need to let go. Start taking action upon, well, what are the facts? Let me figure what they are out. And going into those places, what makes sense in my environment? And I've been saying that a lot. And you know what? I know it's a challenging time. I'm getting a lot of people. I've got more Australians that hit me up lately than ever, being like, man, we're like locked down like here. And then I don't know all the rules. I need to go look. So I'm not going to say I know what's going on there. All I've heard is that you can't fly out of there. I don't know if you can fly in there. There's just a lot of weird shit going on there that I need to go get the facts on more to be straight about before I even go deeper into it. But, there's definitely a lot of things right now that are very Chiron-based events, of things that look like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like the way it looks. But guess what that means? It just means, okay, well, what inside there, if I was in Australia, I'm not allowed to go to the EU right now. So, you know what I mean? Even though I probably wouldn't be going there right now anyway. But I'm saying that whole idea of I can't go to the EU. Well, am I going to spend my time figuring out how to get to the EU? Or am I going to spend my time figuring out what I am able to do and start figuring out the curiosities that are within here and letting go of all these doorways that could be, or it could have been a great time to be at the Louvre right now, or it could be this. It's like, move into what can be now. So let's take a look at the charts. Remember, if you are not a member of highvibe.tv, you're going to get just the audio now. But please be a member. We have a 7-day free trial and so forth. Go to highvibe.tv. And for all those on HighVibe, I love you all very much. All right, let's take a look at the charts. We got the first chart here for today, Wednesday on July 8th. And this day is finishing as I'm doing this, but I just wanted to point out that this moon had been in Aquarius coming out of the July 4th weekend and after the eclipses, and then it was here in Pisces. And we're seeing that moon going to make squares to Venus now that it's direct from Pisces' point of view. And, I feel that, this is a time for us of deep spiritual want and yearning, of the curiosities, and to figure out what's going to make us feel better. Where is the relationship energy at spiritually and emotionally, and having to learn to listen to the signs and what comes up. And as you can see here tonight, it has finally happened. 28 degrees. Whew, that North Node. I am happy. I'm telling you that one. I'm a 29 Neptune in Sag. So, I'm happy for the South Node to be off my Neptune. But I can tell you that edge of moving into this new 18-month cycle that started May 5th has now fully started the new chapters of what it's going to look like. And with the sun being in Cancer, it's getting ready for these big oppositions. And that's what we're going to be covering in today's stuff. And here's Mars getting ready to come with Chiron. Both Chiron is direct still, and then Mercury, of course, is still in retrograde, but it's starting to station. It's going to actually stay at this 5 degrees. So let's take a look here at Thursday. Thursday is going to be one of those days that I feel we're kind of in between spaces, and then it's just kind of an odd day. The moon, of course, going to be in Pisces. It's really not making any overwhelming aspects until later in the day. When it hits Neptune, it trines the sun, and it will start making great sextiles to Jupiter, Pluto. So Thursday evening looks a lot more invigorating and more lovely, I'd say. But I would say that there's a little bit of a gaping hole energetically Thursday. especially talking for those in the North America, South America. Those in the UK or in Australia would definitely be Friday morning. You'd start to feel the better energy. So all of your Thursday might just feel off. Because this moon really is pretty much a void off course moon in many ways. It's just not doing much, and it's in Pisces land, and it's just kind of floating around, and we're in a Mercury retrograde that is pretty much stopped, right? So if we look at Mercury here retro, it's only doing 12 minutes in travel in retrograde, so it's getting ready to station here for the weekend. And there's not a lot going on with that. And so, the other thing too is Mars is headed towards Chiron, but it's not there yet. Chiron doesn't retrograde till Saturday, so that's what I'm saying. We're kind of in an in-between space. And sure, that moon early does connect with Uranus, but I mean, I think it's just, I don't know, the internet's been kind of funky lately. The internet's been kind of funky. But I'm writing Thursday off as a day to listen to spirit, to get deeper into spirit, and to know that it's one of those moments in our life where we have to just go with the flow more and listen to the signs. And I would say there's a lot of patience that's going to be needed until we get to this weekend. Because there is that whole element of also, we're going to have to confront our visions, our dreams, and also bring a reality check to things with all this Capricorn, with the sextile to Neptune and the moon. And with the sun being in Cancer, our feelings, our personal life, there's a lot of questions about that. And with Mercury retrograde there. So Thursday's pretty much like, I don't want to say it's a write-off. I'm just saying as an astrologer, it's an energetic day that's a lot of what is going on here. Friday, though, this is where I'm going to think that things are going to have some similar aspects, but I would say that there is the interesting aspect of Venus, right, which we are going to see in sextile to Chiron. And that's the whole thing, is like the humility aspect and the definition of things and the oddity of things coming with Venus here. It's like sometimes the more weird situations are, or maybe don't look the way that we identify them normally, and actually have a little bit of stimulation because maybe it's not so normal in relationships, in things that make us feel good, are healing, and that also at the same time can embody something beautiful. Now the moon is in dreamy Pisces, and it's just past Neptune, but there is that aspect where the moon is kind of stuck there, gonna go into, squares to the nodes, and that is kind of a destined position there, especially since the moon does serve these two, of questioning about, is this the story I want, or am I just curious about this and I want to figure out more? So I would say that there's a lot of curiosity going on, but if you're trying to get into end-all be-alls right now, Thursday, Friday, there is no end-all be-alls. Mercury's almost done with its retrograde, but it's not, and Chiron's a day away from coming direct. So Chiron is stopped while Venus touches this. So this is about just staying curious, being optimistic in a way of like the curiosity and the excitement of the curiosity, but not having any sure bets, like, oh yeah, I'm sure about this, or this is for sure it in my life. Because we can kind of get pulled into the emotional. If anybody's trying to emotionally pull you into I need to get a 100% for sure about this. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to give you the I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, because there's no way, especially with Mars on Chiron, that's starting to happen. I mean, there's that whole element of us not knowing, unless that's where the hard hit would come this weekend is, yeah, oh yes, I know, this is it. Or let's say this is it. Yes. And then, this weekend Chiron retrogrades and Mercury comes direct, and then we go, wait, what? This is not it. So we want to almost cross that out and just be like, maybe. Questions are good with North Node and Gemini. Maybe. Let's find out through curiosity. So it's not massive commitment energy, Gemini. Gemini is like, well, let's do the experiment. Sag is like, I'm willing to take a long journey with you through the Himalayas, and I'm going to need you, and you're going to bring your backpack, and you're going to bring how much, and you got that, and you got this, and we all are going to follow each other up the mountain, you know what I mean? And like, that's a journey, and there's a commitment to journey, and that's a whole journey. Like, you're going to be a Christian, you're going to go to church every Sunday, and you're going to listen to the Pope, and we're going to get the orders from the Pope, and you're committed, right? Because if you're not committed, then you're going to hell, you know what I mean? Like, this is different. This is just Gemini, and everybody's got that dualistic nature, and everybody's right now not in a space of surety. And you're going to have to realize that might be the biggest wound for some people. Some people need more surety in their life. And this is a time of massive change. A lot of cardinal with these nodes that are in mutability, and it's massive T-square of cardinal energy with mutable aspects and a mutable Venus that's in in shadow still. So that creates just the oddity of life. And we still look over here at the dignified energies, and it is the malefic, Saturn and Mars. So I'm saying that it could feel harsh, but it's not as much as it is moving forward into things in a different way. Moving forward it might seem malefic, but it's not, as long as you take that foundation and that courage to continue to move your life forward with, number one, not being afraid of your own independent nature, and not being afraid to have a plan, and being willing to take a plan with how things go in the organic form of life, instead of planning. Because some people are going to come into this weekend, and let's just go to it on Saturday, that there's something about this Saturday that does come to a point to where it's like, this is kind of a weird zone, because it is the zone of Chiron Retrograde. Well, maybe it was my program, actually. It's weird that my program just froze. Hold on 1 sec. Stop mirroring. How about now? So yeah, here's Chiron Retrograde here on Saturday. And there's the moon that's joining it in Aries, and it's going to be on top of Mars. So if you've been planning and seeking some sort of identification of things to be a certain way, and you've overly shot the moon for this thing, right? It could hurt. It could hurt. This moon's in Aries. It's massive cardinal energy, and we're in a very mutable time. Hold on 1 second. What if I try, will you see if the Mac Mini will pop up for you? Let's try that. It's all right. Like, I'll just be able to zoom in. They'll be able to see it, though. At least we can do it. Yeah, that's cool. So that's the hard portion, is like, see, we're going to have a great aspect from Venus to the moon. So it's like, why don't you just enjoy how things are kind of going, and the enjoyability of life, the enjoyability of the curiosity of life and how things are, and the defining of life organically of how it's going to be, especially with Mars there with Chiron Retrograde. Chiron Retrograde is now like, oh, I have to truly understand that things did maybe not go all the way through this whole year so far of 2020 the way that I thought it was going to go. And that's just an ego. It's not even a thought. It's the thought about your ego not getting what it wants that actually is an underlying thing that you need to really consider. Is like, maybe this Gemini energy is helping our egos go, well, maybe that wasn't the best for you anyway. We need to kind of see that Venus is helping Chiron out through this. Like, you really maybe are not holding on to such a shitty position as you thought you were. maybe God made all this stuff happen the way that it's supposed to be. And look right now, because if it would have gone the other way, the way that you hoped, that some weird fantasy, especially with these, especially I got to say, there's a lot of fanatical energy with Neptune being in Pisces at 20 degrees, and with these nodes now that are now starting to move towards Neptune in the square, and with the South Node in Sag, and with Jupiter, of course, being the ruler of Sag, and that dispositor, and it's with Pluto. It's like things are coming to an end, and you're going to have to be cool with that. You're going to have to be cool with some things and some plans and some big doors that you hoped would continue or that you hope would go, but these are destroying some doors to open up new doors, new identities. I mean, look at how the world is, so think about how your own identity is going to fit. Think of yourself as a new avatar coming into a new world. You know, there's adjustments that we are all making, but there are adjustments in how we perspect ourselves, and we shouldn't shame ourselves for the avatar that is not, it's not that your avatar of yourself was ever bad or anything. It's changing for the world in the way that it's going to be now, especially through this week. It's not, even at this point, Mercury's still retrograde, stationed retrograde at 5 degrees and 30 minutes. And if you see here with Mercury here, it is just there. See, it's only at literally retrograding 2 minutes a day. That means it's not doing anything. Mercury's a fast planet. So it's extremely slow, and Jupiter retrograde is still slow, and Capricorn Saturn is retrograde still slow, and Neptune's super slow, and Pluto's actually pretty fast for the retrograde. And look at that, Chiron retro 000. Chiron is dead stopped. It's dead stopped on looking on humility of identity and avatar. It's like, it reminds me of, like, you know, when you play Wii or you play Nintendo Switch or something, you have your own little avatar, like little MeWe or whatever it is. Like, you know, it's kind of like, are you still using the one that's outdated? Like, have you updated it? Or you know how we use, what is it? The Bitmojis? Like, have you updated your Bitmoji? When was the last time you updated your Bitmoji? You know, like for me and my Bitmoji, I have like a black t-shirt on, V-neck, and you know what I mean? It's like, I used to have them in a suit because I used to wear suits all the time. And then like now I wear like black t-shirt more. Maybe I need to update my emoji and my identity the way that my life is. And maybe there's these curiosity doors and these curiosity situations and curiosity. There's curiosity relationship-wise with Venus here at 9. Remember, it's going to go 10, and that means it's going to be on top of Aldebaran. And it's going to be in opposition to Antares, all while these events are going down. And with the moon, that's going to be with Mars, you know, wants things. So that's okay. It just is a new emotional avatar want into curiosity instead of, I want things to look the way that I thought it would look, but, you know, there's Chiron there stopped, like, but look at all this stuff that your ego wanted that didn't happen, Mars. I don't know what to tell you. Remember, Chiron is a warrior just as much as Mars is a warrior, but the leader is Mars of war. So it's like the general coming to Chiron kind of like, what the hell, what happened? Like, I thought we were going to go do this and it was going to look like this and we had this plan and and it's like, I don't know what to tell you, boss, but like I got shot and then next thing I knew I was holding the liver of Prometheus. It's like, what? Like, okay. And instead of Mars flipping out, Mars has to remember, I got to win the war. I don't need to lose. It's okay to lose battles. George Washington lost more battles than he won to win the war. So this is where you have to realize, like, there's no such thing as going steps back, because we don't think about George Washington winning the Revolutionary War about how many battles he lost. We just remember that he won the war and got the freedom from the British monarch. So that story, even though that's a triggering story right now in the world, I'm just using it as an example to help people understand this is your life. You've lost some battles. And instead of flipping out on your little commanders, and you're the head commander of your ego, because your ego can split off into multiple identifications of things and be like, my ego wants this. And if you see like the whole row is red and there's only a couple greens, you're like, what the hell? It's like pop breakers, you know, like what the fuck? And especially since Uranus is in semi-sextile, 10 degrees, semi-sextile to this stuff, it's like, yeah, there's going to be pop breakers because they weren't quality enough, and that's okay. It wasn't the best. But that means that now, I don't know, there's something weird. Maybe I'm a little bit cryptic with Saturn in Scorpio, that I was born with, the Mars in Scorpio, that when like something breaks, like an electronic or something in my life, or even a car or whatever, I'm like, well, I can fucking go get a new one. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, if it's not salvageable, like there's something exciting. Like, oh, God's ready for me to get something new. And I think that God's like kind of asking us like, hey, we're updating our identities. We're updating all the aspects of reality anyway. So we might as well, like, if we're looking at relationships with Venus there, if we're looking at Uranus and semi-sextile to a better life that's going to be more fruitful for us, that this is not losing the war. This is just losing some battles that take us to understand how to win our lives in a better way. And with Mercury still stopped Saturday with Chiron Retrograde, Mars and the Moon, like, hey, like, don't flip out on this, but take this as, well, at least I don't have to deal with all those things that didn't work out. I can go this way. And here's the event, which is going to be 1:26 a.m. on Sunday. We're going to see Mercury come direct. And so when Mercury comes direct now, at least we get some sort of grip, and it's in Cancer of our personal life, and realizing that after that blow to the Moon, Mars, and Chiron together, which is not so much of a blow, but much more of a, okay, let me take this in for a second, you know? I mean, some blows, though, can be, you know, a good example is, because we're going to use Mars stuff, and I've said it before, and maybe not lately, but it's Gladiator, the movie. You know, when Maximus is told by the emperor, right, like, hey, I want you to be the emperor, and he's like, I don't want it, right? So his ego doesn't want it, even though the emperor's asking him for it. Well, long story short, it's a very Chiron situation where he's kind of like, I don't want it, but he's told it, and then he like doesn't take it that serious enough. He knows his, you know, the emperor's son is a freaking weirdo. And the emperor's son kills the father and then goes after Maximus and throws him into a camp to be a freaking gladiator, and it sucks for him, and they try to kill him actually and all that stuff. So, you know, those are kind of the worst part of Chiron situations. It's almost kind of like, what if he would have embraced the father and said, okay, you want me to do this? Let's do this. And kind of, he said, even though this is a blow, I don't want to do this. I'm being called to do this, or this is what's being asked of me, or this is what God's kind of led the road towards. I don't think that Maximus in that movie would have thought like, well, okay, I like my ranch with my wife and my kids. Well, maybe being the emperor would give me a lot nicer ranch and a better time to be more with my kids, and I could also have an entourage of protection for us all the time and make a nice winery or do wherever we want. I don't think that he thought about it that way. It's like, you know, so I'm using that as an example of like these weird scenarios that are going to come up this weekend. And instead of looking them as weird, you're going to just have them take them with a grain of salt. And you're going to have to go, well, this is, it didn't, and this could just be just a collective, but also in yourself, just an overall, like, what the hell am I doing? And did I make mistakes? And did I do things? It's like, okay, you learn things, but this empowers you to be humilified in a positive way, that you're a human and that you have the human possibility to be to where you feel that you want to go create things that make you curious. Because this is going to be with the moon that will be starting to square the sun. And also, I forgot to tell you all with the day prior, and I'll just move back, is when this moon does come on top of Mars and Chiron, it'll also be squared to Mercury retrograde. So it's like a very weird and confusing event. You know, very weird, confusing event. But I have another chart here for Sunday after Mercury is direct, right at 5. So it's that 20-degree sun-moon square. And it's happening all while the sun's getting ready to come to 21, and that means it's making a T-square here to Jupiter at 22. And here's Mars and Chiron now coming together. And that's kind of moving through the The good news is like Chiron stopped, so Mars is still at full speed. So Mars is a freight train right now going really fast. And in Aries, it's the warrior like, what happened? Oh, okay, I got to keep going in the war. So I don't think this will be as big on Sunday because Mercury will be direct and the moon will be square the sun. And it's like, okay, my personal life is being re-identified and in order to take me to a new, bigger place. And that's what I'm going to show you all is when we look on Monday here, the sun at 21 degrees, it's going to come to 22 later that day, and it will be in opposition to Jupiter. So it's a sun opposite Jupiter with Pluto. Like, it's time to look at the new doors that make sense for our long term, that make sense for our destiny, and that being willing to look at that some things with Pluto there just need to be changed 100%. And when you aren't afraid of fears, you're not afraid of change, you're not afraid of acceptance too. Pluto is about receiving, right? So about receiving the personal life that destiny is calling for, about receiving even the things that don't work out and being like, that's part of the things that are taking you to the right doorways. And so there's going to be a lot of give and take there. The moon will be exalted in Taurus. So there's some stability there, and we're going to see Venus at 11. And I feel that this is where we're starting to see the changing of the tides with Venus. Because now Venus is now going to be actually faster than Mars. So if you see Mars at 32 minutes a day, Venus is at 33. So she has now taken over faster than Mars. Okay? Even though Mars is fast, if you see this, it still says Venus is slow. Remember, Venus is very fast. She's before Earth, and she's after Mercury from the sun astronomically. But the fact that Venus now has overtaken Mars in fastness, now Mars is not the fastest one. Things are kind of getting back to normal as far as the energies there for a second here. And they're not going to meet up, right? If you see it's 11 Gem and then 9 Aries here with Mars. When Mars meets up with Chiron on this sun opposition to Jupiter, Pluto, I mean, this is just the re-identification of your life. Some people, it might be really bad just because of wherever the attachment of the ego is in such a place that they only felt, or maybe it's in yourself or whoever that felt it has to look this way. And what do I do if I don't have it this way? That's the great teacher of Chiron, is who knows from the outer and the reality. It's stuck between both of Saturn and Uranus, which ironically are the two that rule Capricorn and Aquarius, where we're seeing Saturn in. And here's Mars with it in Aries. And remember the last time that we saw Mars in Aries was at the beginning of 2019, when we came into 2019. That we rushed into 2019 with all the planets in their dignified positions. Jupiter in Sag, Saturn in Capricorn, Mars in Aries, Neptune in Pisces. I mean, it was a shabam of dignified energy that kind of was redefining your life. And then you came into now a world that's actually redefining itself. So maybe, do you need to change the avatar so much? Or maybe you just need to just like accept the avatar has been built a certain way and the world doesn't look the way that maybe you want to. And there's a lot of like learning to adjust your ego's position here and be just chill with it and curious about it. Curiosity doesn't kill the cat all the time. Let's be real. That's why a cat gets 9 lives. And Mars is dignified here. And Mars does have a lot of power and strength. Let's not forget it. Even if it's with Chiron, I would say it would be better. Sometimes maybe Mars should travel with Chiron more to learn a little bit, to be a little bit more, the understanding of humanity more. But I would say that this is big doors that are trying to open in our life, and they're beautiful if we're willing to see that, especially with, Venus there. But then here we come with Tuesday. Oh, did it not pull up that chart? We will have to pull it up this way then. 14th. Move the hours. So I just want to show you guys actually since we're here. See, this is the Venus of the morning star because it's on the horizon line in the morning and the sun is still below the horizon. And so Venus is getting farther, she's definitely doing her dance. And she's starting to be seen. But here, let's take a look at this chart, because this is the chart where things are, All right. So yeah, July 14th on Tuesday, we're seeing this moon with Uranus. We're seeing the sun in opposition to Jupiter, Pluto. And with Mars finishing off Chiron here, I would say that this is the big bang that we've been waiting for here, that this is a big transformational moment in our lives. This is whether or not you're ready to take the big new doorways. There's a lot on destiny with the North Node at 2855, quincunxing over to Saturn. And I would say as well, if we look at Juno in opposition to this Mars Chiron, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff with relationships as Venus has now overtaken Mars, and Mars and Venus looked like they were going to sextile, but they didn't. They did the same thing during the Venus pre-retrograde. So there's a lot of things and where things are feeling off cylinders in a lot of different areas, even what makes us feel good, what, you know, like, so accept that. It's when you accept that and find the curiosity and the excitement in the world and are willing to, in your personal life, be willing to go, maybe all these things that have misfired and identified in myself were not really, has been the greatest blessing that we've ever really realized. There's been a lot that we need to start to realize have been the biggest blessings of our lives that we've been going through at this moment. And they're blessings to open up a whole new doorway that we are going to be facing Tuesday and into Wednesday, especially as when we come into that Wednesday and when it finishes into that Thursday, we see that moon with Venus that's direct. And that's why I brought that up about talking about it, is because that's what's coming through this portal. And Mars will be off Chiron, and Mars and Venus will be moving, and the sun will get off, and then we're going to go through a dark moon next week, and it will get us ready to the last, the new moon, which will end the eclipse cycle. And it's a second new moon in Cancer. That means we're re-understanding our personal lives double time, twice as much. And I think that's very important to know right now, and that these are massive doors. These are massive doors of our lives that are changing, and doors that are having you let go of the way that you think it should look, or letting go of this whole perspective from the world's point of view of how you should be living your life. Like, I'm just saying that from an astrological standpoint. Some people may get triggered by that. I'm not even talking about what you see out there in the news, in the media, or how people, this is not a time to shame yourself for who you are. This is not a time to shame others. This is a time to remember your boat is with God. Your boat is with destiny. Your boat and your direction is with that. And you got to follow that, and you got to follow your senses, and you got to realize that a lot of things didn't work out. Because these boats that are getting to this ultimate goal in our life, to this ultimate place of what we were meant to be and what we're here to do, is very important to the universe. It's very important to God. It's very important to the whole reason why we came down here. And we need to look at that these moments have not been failures, but these moments have been things that have brought you to the next step, to the next step, to the next step. And that there's a major big leap here coming. And when we come from a much more Gemini excited, who knows, but let me figure it out, opposed to like, let me just focus on this huge thing or too many big things at once, like, and you know, like, you can get overwhelmed right now. Just focus on the small, and it's not even small because it's big too. Don't forget, Gemini actually is big in the sense that it is the mind that figures out, and it truly understands by getting curious about things and excited. There's a lot to be excited about right now, but there's also a lot if you're going to fall into the beliefs that everything is bad and you're victimized and this doesn't look the way you want to and all that. It was a big ego blow, and that's okay. It's like, this is how we evolve into a better place, into better doors, into the ultimate doors. And it's Cancer. It's our personal lives that have been rearranged a lot. And it's our personal lives getting rearranged so much and re-identifying, and with all this Gemini being recirculated in so many different things of curiosities that are actually aligning us in our boats to our destiny, to the ultimate call, to destiny's call. So I truly appreciate all your support. I wouldn't, there's going to be weird stuff that comes out in the world. But again, it's going to look weird. Let it look weird. And find your way to find your happiness, find your way to feel your great new, might not even be new, like I said, if you go back to 2019, but your new way of approach to figure out the excitement of what's possible. Because the universe in the dark is not going to make it to where you cannot still have the time of your life, where you can still not have the most amazing life. That is what has got to change. And when that changes, you'll find the magic within you. Please share this video. I truly appreciate it. Please be a member of highvibe.tv if you want more, of course, exclusive content where you can actually see the charts and see everything. We truly appreciate you all here. Of course, we'd love to have you be on High Vibe to be part of the show that Craig and I do, Full Disclosure, which we do on Thursdays, where you can ask us questions. We're live in the chat. I think it was last week we did like a 2.5-hour one. I mean, we really have a great time on High Vibe. And right now, it's on the leoking.com. I just redid my website. I added a blog on there. You can be a member and start adding things. I put all my old astrology blogs from 2011 up, and I'm adding new blogs. I'm going to just be starting to write blogs, but I'm also going to be adding a blog to High Vibe. But if you want to start looking at some crazy 2012 stuff that I've been doing for a long time and writing about, it's all on the leoking.com right now. I just added it, and now I'm adding the blog portion to highvibe.tv. It won't be on the app, but it will be on the website. But love you all. Thanks so much, and I'll see you all in the next Deep Astrology.